This is the Junkers 88, or Ju-88 if you prefer, and I'm going to argue why it was probably one of the better aircraft of the Second World War, or at least one of the most consistently better aircraft of the Second World War. Because this thing started out in the 30s and saw out the entire war, and even ended up serving with the French for, I think it was till 47, so it wasn't a long time, but in that post-war era when France was trying to rebuild its armaments, they used these. So that says a lot for the aircraft, that it was in sufficient numbers and there was still enough of them around that the French used them. So why do I want to argue that it's actually a good aircraft, despite being German? Now, from day one, it was designed to be versatile, it was designed to be multi-role, and it's designed to fill all of those roles successfully and not just be a little bit able to do a bit of everything. And the reason that that's very important for this aircraft is that at the time, a certain corporal with a bad moustache and an even worse attitude was prone to fits of impulsiveness, let's say. And so he would determine things like everything with wings had to be a dive bomber if it claimed any kind of bombing capability. So this even had the ability to act as a dive bomber. It wasn't particularly used in that role because it wasn't very good at it, but it was capable and it could do it. But on top of that, it was also a torpedo bomber. It was a regular bomber. It could drop all kinds of fancy munitions, like all the things displayed here at Cosford underneath it. It was a very capable aircraft, and it was versatile in that it was designed to be fast, and it was designed to be able to outrun what they thought would be the kind of speeds that interceptor fighters would go at the time. Didn't turn out to be the case, but that didn't stop it. It was still very capable, even though it did actually need fighter escorts. And this one's a night fighter, which you can tell by the death lasers mounted to the front. I'm only joking, that's radar antennae. But have a little fun. Anyway, it was good at a lot of roles, and it was versatile. It had these great big fat tyres, so it could carry a fairly heavy load and take off and land on runways that were not necessarily in the best condition, which is why it was successful on so many different fronts that it was used on. And it was a tough aircraft. It was quite surprisingly challenging to bring one of these down. I mean, it wasn't perfect. For example, what you'll notice from this angle that we're at now is it's missing any kind of sidewards defence, which made it vulnerable to beam attacks. That's important because of this thing, essentially, the bolt and pull Defiant. I mean, it's the one job that this was actually designed to do, was fly alongside bombers like that one, and then use its turret to do what they call it, lateral beam attack. So essentially it means fly alongside it and shoot at it sideways, where it had no guns pointing back to shoot back at the bolt and pull. Unfortunately, as soon as it started getting escorted by fighters, that was game over for this thing, so that was its brief moment of glory, and then after that it was all downhill for the bolt and pull. Seeing it again from this angle, you can see how there's no guns pointing back at you, so even when it was fighter escorted and so on, Spitfires and so on, whatever else, the best way to attack it was side on, because there's no one to shoot back at you. But you don't always have that kind of luxury of choice. But anyway, if this was such a good aircraft and it was so successful in its own right, why was it not successful in the broader terms of the war, and why were so many more of these lost in terms of ratio of losses to mission compared to Allied stuff? Well, I think the answer to that is actually more to do with something that's not actually an aircraft. There's a lot of reasons that the Luftwaffe never succeeded with their bombing raids against the UK, and a lot of that can be put on the German command and their skittish attitude towards strategy, suddenly changing from attacking airfields and defences to attacking citizens and the morale of the population. The biggest problem the Luftwaffe faced, though, was getting shot down a lot, which sounds kind of obvious, but part of their initial plan was that they would be able to sneak in and raid before the Brits knew they were coming. Now, anti-aircraft can claim credit for just shy of about 20% of that, but anti-aircraft rounds at the time were not proximity fuse based, so not as effective as in later years. But as highly effective as proximity fuses were, and that's a whole other video in itself, it was a new, different technology that won it for the British. That and a fellow named Air Chief Marshal Dowding, who integrated it into a rather clever system. The main component of that technology was radar. The ability to triangulate the position of enemy aircraft through radar technology was a key part of the Dowding system, but it was the Dowding system as a whole that really brought the Luftwaffe to its knees. What Dowding realised was that it wasn't enough to just know where the enemy was, it was vital to be able to act on that information with maximum effect. And what Dowding created was the first ever ground-controlled, fully integrated interception network. By connecting the various radar stations, observation posts, fighter squadrons and so on, the British had a complete coverage of the airspace from the northern tip of Scotland down to the southern coast of England. It was now virtually impossible for a German bomber to cross into British aerospace without being seen and the closest interceptor squadron coming to have a word, day or night. Though to be fair, the early iterations of aircraft-mounted radar were not great. By the late 1940s with the Mark IV radar, this changed dramatically and things improved. All in all, the Dowding system led to above 90% success rate in interceptions. If you were a Junkers flying into UK airspace, it was pretty much a given that you were going to be met by a significant number of angry aircraft. Because that was the key to the effectiveness of the Dowding system. Not only did they know you were coming, but they also had a good idea of how many, and so they could mobilise the optimum number of interceptors to ruin your day. The Dowding system definitely deserves a closer look, but for now it's enough to say that thanks to Dowding having the insight to understand that not one technology was the complete solution, it was an exceptionally effective system that ruined many a German's day. And of course there was another problem for the Junkers crews. If you did get shot down and you managed to escape the aircraft, you were pretty much guaranteed to become a POW, whereas the RAF pilots could be back in action within days, and the Germans struggled with that rate of attrition. Just as a quick postscript, I think this also had something to do with it, which is the fact that this is a Lincoln bomber, so it wasn't servicing the war, but it was based on the Lancaster. And one of the things you can tell is that the Lancaster also had a huge bomb capacity. So the amount of damage per aircraft you could do with one of these compared to a Junkers was much increased. So if one of these got through, you know, in a raid where you lost a lot of aircraft, for every one of these got through, you actually did more damage to the target than if you only got one or two Junkers getting through to the target. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well.